Hello anybody, and thanks for tuning in to Monday Morning Handicapping. This is a big race breakdown, and today I'm going to be covering the Haskell Stakes. This is the video where I'm going to be taking a look at the last 11 runnings of the Haskell and kind of provide a past performances of how this race has been run and won in the past. So let's get started. First off, we're going to start with the video agenda. I'm going to begin with a brief introduction to the Haskell Stakes. What is the Haskell? A brief history. What are the conditions for the race and any other notable facts regarding the race? We'll go over an overview of the past 11 runnings since 2014. That's about when I got back into horse racing, so I thought that's a good time to begin. We'll take a look at my Google Sheets document regarding the Haskell, which will be provided in the description below, which will also include information regarding several other big races, including the Kentucky Derby. We'll look at the average times and internal fractions for the previous 11 runnings of the Haskell to gain a general sense of how the races are run and won on this particular track at this particular point on the calendar in these horses' 3-year-old campaigns. We'll also examine key prep races, pedigrees of the winning horses, the winning trainers and jockeys, ultimately to provide a basic foundation when handicapping this year's running, and then we'll wrap it up with closing thoughts and a wrap-up. So the Haskell is a grade 1. It's the grade 1 Haskell Stakes, which offers a $1 million purse and is limited to horses that are 3 years old, going a distance of 9 furlongs or 1 mile and an eighth over the main dirt track at Monmouth Park in Oceanport, New Jersey. This race is held annually in July, and this year will take place on Saturday, July 19th. The inaugural running of the race took place in 1968. This race is named after Amory Haskell, the former president and chair of Monmouth Park, and the record time for this race was set in 2022 with a time of 1 minute 46.24 seconds by a horse named Cyberknife. And now I'm going to go over that Google Sheets document again, which will be provided in the description below, just to give everyone a sense of what it is I'm looking at and what you'll be looking at if you choose to click the link and take a look for yourself. So here's a look at the Google Sheets document that I will be providing and where I'm getting all my information. In the far left column, we have the years in descending order of each of the Haskell Stakes, the track it was run at, and in this case it was run at Monmouth each year, no interruptions. The conditions of the track, so fast track for all but 1 year where it got some rain and it was considered a sloppy track. Then we have that times for the first quarter mile for each year, and above we have the averages for everything in the columns below. We have LB, which refers to lengths back. This is the lengths back of the winner of the race at each interval of the race or each segment of the race. So at the quarter mile pole in 2024, the eventual winner was 0 lengths back, meaning within a head. If you look over to the right, W2W means wire to wire. This horse didn't win wire to wire, and 0 lengths back means he was probably a head back or a neck back, not a half length or a quarter length even. The year before that, it was a wire-to-wire winner, so it's 0 throughout, where the horse went to the lead from the start. If we go back to 2022, the eventual winner was 3 3/4 lengths back after the first quarter mile. The split refers to the time it took between the preceding quarter mile to the next quarter mile. So in 2022, the first quarter mile was run in 23.5 seconds, and to the half mile pole, that quarter mile was run in 23.46 seconds. And I did that for each of the segments of the race, and of course it ends in an eighth of a mile, so the time over here for the split is for the final eighth or half of a quarter mile. The rate also indicates how much faster or slower each quarter mile was run than the previous one. So if you see a positive number, that indicates how much slower that quarter mile was run than the previous one. So in 2024, you can see the first quarter mile was run in 23.32. The next quarter mile was run in 24.76. That's a slower time of 1.44 seconds. And I also averaged this out at the very end for all of the segments of the race. On average, how much slower is each quarter mile being run. If you see a negative number, that means that that quarter mile was actually run faster than the quarter mile before it, just so you can get a sense of how the races are run and won depending on how fast the opening quarter miles are throughout the entire race. Of course, we have the wire-to-wire winners for each of the races, and again, above our averages or the percentages. So 3 wire-to-wire winners in the last 11 years equates to 27%. We have the odds of each horse that won the race and the average odds of all the horses above, 4.21 to 1 odds on average for each winner. We have the name of each winner. We have the post position they were coming out of, along with the average post position. We have the race number, which means which race number in their career did they win the Haskell Stakes. So Dornoch won the Haskell in his 9th start. Go Rocket Ride won the Haskell in his 4th start. Cyberknife, again, that track record setter, in his 9th start. And above, we have the average starts for each winner of the Haskell. Over here we have race prior, so which race or prep race is each of the Haskell winners coming out of their most recent race before the Haskell. Did they win that particular race? 55% of them did win their previous race. Did they win it in wire-to-wire fashion? Of course, we have 3 wire-to-wire Haskell winners, but only 1 wire-to-wire in their previous race. The last race distance in the terms of furlongs, so 10 furlongs, 8.5 furlongs, 8.5. How long was their average prep race before winning the Haskell? 9.32 furlongs. And DSLR stands for days since last race. So how many days ago was their prep race before winning the Haskell? Here they are right here, and you have the average up above. So on average, the last 11 Haskell winners last race 46 days before winning the Haskell. So that's the amount of time off and rest and recovery that they got before winning the Haskell. Over here we have Pedigree, which is the father and the father of the mother of the horse. So a sire is a horse's father. The dam is the horse's mother, but the dam sire is the father of the horse's mother. And that's a little bit more important in the pedigree aspect of things, just because there's so few runners that come out of mothers, of course, about once a year. So a lot of people look to the dam sire for more indications on how well a horse might run at certain distances and on certain surfaces. But we have the sires and dam sires here. We have the name of the winning trainer, we have the name of the winning jockey, and any other additional comments that I thought were relevant for each year. So each of the last 11 years, this race has been run at Monmouth Park without interruption. Only one of the previous 11 runnings was over a sloppy track, while the remaining 10 were run over a dry, fast track. So for now, you should expect a dry track, but when preparing to handicap any big race day, you should always monitor the weather a few days in advance, because some horses will show an affinity or even a dislike for different types of surfaces, while others can seemingly run well on any surface. As we can see, on average, the first 3 quarter miles for the previous 11 runnings of the Haskell are run in sub 24-second fractions, with the first quarter mile on average being run in 23.33 from the quarter mile to the half mile, on average run in 23.79, and from the half mile to the 3/4 run in 23.83. As my rule of thumb for route races, if a horse can run 24-second quarter miles throughout an entire race with a distance of 1 mile or more, that is worth noting. However, when a race is run significantly faster than 24 seconds throughout the early parts of the race, this is a scenario that benefits horses that are not leading the pack or close to the horse that is setting those internal fractions. Remember, the times for a race in the racing form are set by the horse that arrives at those markers first, whether another horse takes the lead or not. So when they go to the quarter mile pull or the first quarter mile, whatever horse hits that pull first, that's when the stopwatch stops for that time or that pace of the race. No matter, even if another horse takes the lead later in the race, whatever horse gets there first, that's when the stopwatch is clicked. Due to the fact that the first 3 quarter miles in this race has been run in under 24 seconds on average, I am not surprised to see that the average lengths back of the eventual winner is a little over 2 lengths in the early stages of the race, and quickly come to within 3/4 of a length a mile into the race, as those horses setting up those early fast fractions are beginning to tire themselves out, which is also evident as the slowdown rate is 1.06 seconds at this time, which is up from 0.47 seconds and 0.04 seconds in the previous 2 quarter mile segments. I should also note that the race where the eventual winner was the furthest back at the beginning of the race by far, being over 8 lengths back after the first quarter mile, came on that sloppy track. If there is moisture on the track or rain in the forecast, that might benefit horses from off the pace. When we compare these internal fractions and the slowdown rate of this race compared to the Preakness Stakes, which is also restricted to these 3-year-old horses, albeit a 1/16 of a mile longer, we can see that the slowdown rate from 3/4 of a mile to the mile mark is 0.44, so they're slowing down by 0.44 in the Preakness, versus 1.06 seconds in the Haskell. Now, 0.62 seconds difference might not seem significant, but that is a difference of roughly 3 lengths. Assuming that these 3-year-old horses are indeed maturing physically and professionally, I take away that this particular track is less speed favoring, and I might give extra consideration to horses that have shown a preference for stalking the pace or closing from the back of the pack if when the racing forms come out, and this race would appear to include several horses that might set up a fast pace and battle each other, causing them to get tired late in the race. Taking a look at the wire-to-wire winners, in the past 11 runnings of the Haskell, there have been 3 wire-to-wire winners, which equates to 27%, all of which were run on dry fast tracks. This percentage ranks second in of the 5 big races that I've covered in this playlist and that are included in that Google spreadsheet. When considering a horse that looks on paper like it wants to be in the lead once the race begins, it's important to consider some of their early fractions and their later fractions in previous races compared to the other runners in the race. If there only looks to be one horse with his preferred running style, they can be dangerous win contenders regardless of their accolades in the past. If no one's pressuring a front runner and there's only one of them and he can set comfortable fractions, not be stressed out by another horse looking at him eye to eye throughout the race, they can get real comfortable and sustain that stamina and their run throughout the whole race and can be hard to run down late. If there are multiple runners with this preferred front-running style, this can take a toll on both or all of these types of runners unless they have shown the grit and ability to battle on a fast lead and prevail without their slow rate being so high that other runners will be able to run past them as they begin to tire out. So if they don't seem to be slowing down after running a head-to-head battle, that is worth noting as well. They might be able to withstand some kind of duel on the front end. As you can see in the top wire-to-wire splits, they ran the fastest opening quarter mile, which ultimately led to the highest overall slowdown rate of 0.87 seconds. And the other 2 wire-to-wire winners, they set similar and more moderate splits early on, but in one the average slowdown rate was 0.26 seconds and the other 0.71. Again, that's on average how much they're slowing down per quarter mile. So one of these horses was able to maintain their speed for a longer distance. This is where using a keen eye to determine a horse's ability to carry their speed at this tempo over this distance is vital to choosing a winner. Again, if there are multiple horses that like to go to the lead and have run similar splits or early fractions in the past, it might be wise to assume that a duel might ensue, creating more stress on the horses going for the lead, leading them to exert themselves so much that they are too tired to maintain a high enough rate of speed late in the race to get to the wire first. As always, a horse's chances of winning in any fashion is determined by the pace of the race and their ability to carry their speed the entire distance. Compare all horses in the field to one another. Try to visualize where they are going to be relative to the pack, how fast the horses up front might be urged to run, and perhaps who seems to have a good combination of speed to stay relatively close to the pace, but enough stamina to kick home in the stretch. The times above are examples of how fast horses have won this race wire to wire before, but it is always dependent on who else is in the race and how the race dynamic appears it will shape up. Now taking a look at the winner's previous race, again their prep race, in the far left column we have the count for which number race the Haskell is in their career for each of the past 11 winners. We can see that on average for the past 11 winners of this race, the Haskell was their 7.8th career start. The range includes a low of their 4th career start and as high as their 13th career start. When we consider the average, however, it would lead me to prefer a young 3-year-old to have a little more conditioning and experience when coming into this race. The most common prep race for winning the Haskell is the Belmont Stakes, producing 3 of the last 11 winners, which equates to 27%. Of the 5 big races I've covered, the Haskell has the highest percent of horses winning their most recent race. 55% won their prep race before winning the Haskell, and that's higher than the Kentucky Derby, the Preakness, the Belmont, and the Stephen Foster, the other races that I've covered. Only one horse in the past 11 runnings of the Haskell won their prep race wire to wire before winning the Haskell. Last race distance appears to be within the typical range for horses running this distance at this level at this time of year when compared with the other big races for 3-year-olds that I've covered. The average days since last race is 46, so most winners are coming into this race off a little bit of a break, a little freshening. The least number of days since their last race is 34 days, which happened 2 times, but also as high as 71, again, the average being 46. Taking a look at the winner's pedigree, sires Into Mischief and Curlin have each produced 2 of the past 11 winners of the Haskell, which equates to 18% each, or 36% of the winners combined. The horse that was sired by Gunrunner set the track record for the distance at this track when he won the Haskell, so look for any horse in this year's Haskell that might be sired by Gunrunner and can put up a big performance. Admittedly, pedigree is an area I'm trying to educate myself more on, and have even started a pedigree playlist in hopes of not only educating myself, but any viewers out there. However, I'm sure there are some additional overlaps in the the lineages that are not made immediately evident by looking at the sire or dam sire of the previous 11 winners. If you want to visit a website for diving into pedigrees a lot more, I urge you to first check out my pedigree playlist, of course, but the website Pedigree Query goes really in depth and you can get carried away, but it's very useful, very informative website to look at a horse's pedigree. Either way, if you see any horses in this year's Haskell with Into Mischief or Curlin or even Gunrunner in the pedigree, and they fit some of the other criteria I've covered in this video, be sure to scrutinize their past performances. As always, watching replays of at least the horse's most recent race to find any traffic issues that aren't covered in the racing form, as well as horses that seem to get a perfect, no excuse trip in their last race and still manage to lose, is an imperative tool when finding the best horse. So look for horses, again, that got some trouble in their last race, maybe ran into some traffic or got boxed in, but also seemingly had a no excuse trip but was still unable to win the race. Now taking a look at some of the connections, trainer Bob Baffert has won this race 3 out of the past 11 times, which equates to 27%, while trainer Brad Cox has won this race 2 of the past 11 times, equating to 18%. Baffert's horses were making their 5th, 7th, and 9th career start, or 7th career start on average when winning the Haskell. Brad Cox's horses were making their 8th and 9th career start for an average of their 8.5th career start. Baffert used 3 different jockeys for each of his wins, while Brad Cox used Florent Giroux for both of his wins. For Baffert's most recent win, he used Mike Smith as the jockey, one of 2 jockeys that have won this race 2 of the past 11 times, the other being Florent Giroux. Mike Smith also won this race for trainer Richard Mandela more recently than he did with Baffert. And Brad Cox also won both of his Haskell Stakes since Bob Baffert won his last. So now we're just going to look at some key takeaways regarding the track. You should always monitor the weather for the area of the track you're going to play. Make sure to recognize what surfaces and conditions the various horses have shown their best efforts. Only one of the previous 11 Haskells has been on a wet track, but if the track does happen to be wet, check for success on a wet track or at least a high Tomlinson rating for a wet track, looking for a number of 320 or higher. And if you don't know where to find this, I have a playlist called How to Read a Racing Form, and I believe it's under Career Performances video where I go into that whole section that includes those Tomlinson ratings. Looking at fractions and finish times, look for a horse that has shown it can handle this distance, has handled shorter distances with some apparent gas left in the tank, maybe a little more stamina and a stretch out would do him good, or led at longer distances but maybe tired out very late and a cutback or a shortening in distance would do the horse good. Watching replays and getting the actual visual of how a horse is performing can be beneficial in conjunction with reading the racing forms. Lengths back. The eventual winner is on average within 2.5 lengths of the leaders throughout the entire race. By far, the horse that won from the furthest back early in the race was run on the lone sloppy track when he won from 8 lengths back. Perhaps this track is more closer friendly when it gets some moisture. Also, the more need the lead type horses in any given race, the greater chances I give to some of the deeper closing type horses. And that goes for any race really. Wire-to-wire winners, 2 of the last 11 runnings were won wire-to-wire, which is 18%. One of those winners was a huge betting favorite, and the other was a moderate price at 9-2 odds. Look for any indications of a lone speed horse and dig deeper to determine if they might be able to lead the pack at a comfortable enough pace to wire the field. Comparing this leading horse's early fractions with the other runners in the race to see if they'll get the lead, then look at their closing fractions to determine if they will maintain that speed. Looking at the prep races, key takeaways, winners of the Haskell are on average making their 7.8th career start. The most common prep race for the winner has been the Belmont Stakes with 3 of the last 11. The Haskell also has a 55% rate of winners that won their most recent prep race before winning the Haskell, the most of any of the big races I've covered. The average distance of the Haskell winners last race was 9.32 furlongs, just over a mile and an eighth, and the average days since their most recent race was 46 days. Looking at pedigree, Into Mischief and Curlin have both sired 2 of the last 11 winners, combining for 36% total. Look for either of these horses to be in the immediate pedigree, as well as that horse Gunrunner, who did sire the track record setter. Looking at connections, trainer Bob Baffert has won this race 3 of the past 11 times, and trainer Brad Cox has won this race 2 of the past 11 times, both more recently than any of Baffert's wins. Baffert used 3 different jockeys for each win, while Brad Cox used Florent Giroux for both wins. Jockey Mike Smith has 2 of the last 11 wins for 2 different trainers, while Florent Giroux has 2 wins, both for trainer Brad Cox. That's it for this video. I want to thank anybody for watching. Again, feedback is always appreciated, whether it's positive, negative, you have suggestions or recommendations for me. I welcome it all. I'd love to hear back from anyone who has thoughts about what I'm doing. If you didn't understand any topic or know someone who might be interested in horse racing or wants to get interested, I have a couple of playlists. One is how to read a racing form. In the past, I brought friends to the racetrack and I show them the racing form, and it looks a little overwhelming and daunting to them. And I thought I should come out with a video that just simply explains all the components of the racing form, what it's telling you, what you can glean from the information, because a racing form is there to help the player make an informed decision on how the race is going to be run and who might benefit from the race, and to help you just make an educated decision on the win end. So I have that playlist that I think is a great starting point for anyone who just wants to learn how to read the racing form. Once you get a handle on that, I have another playlist, Betting on Horse Racing, where I go over each of the bets that a track typically offers, talk about what it is, how much it costs based on your ticket structure, and a few things that I look for when I'm placing one of these bets and how I like to structure my ticket accordingly. So if you know anyone that's interested in horse racing or you just want to brush up on it, go ahead and give those a look and let me know what you think. Coming up next, I'm thinking about doing either a race forecast on the Haskell Stakes, or I might switch over to a Pedigree playlist. I'm really getting a kick out of looking at pedigrees and seeing what their offspring like to do best, especially some of these younger stallions out in the breeding shed nowadays, because not a lot is known into what they're going to produce. So really dialing down on what those offspring are doing and where they're thriving might pay off in some of those races where some of the horses are making their first ever career start. The horse I'm thinking about doing next is Matoli. I've already done, I think, 3 other horses so far, so I'm just piling on. And if you go back and look at my Pedigree playlist video, that file is attached in the descriptions below. If anyone has any requests on something they'd like me to cover, please let me know. There's my contact information at the bottom. You can email me. But I'm also going on a vacation in a week, so I might try to put a video out before then, and then I probably won't put anything out for a week until I get back. But just some thoughts that I'm thinking about covering. Let me know what you think. Thank you to everybody for watching. Any feedback would be appreciated. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.